Hey Chewie, the Solo movie's finally out. What do you think about your performance in the film? What's that? What'd you say? Oh, I agree. So let's talk about the new film. What's going on, friends? Logan Myerz here for Cinephellas.com to talk about the newest addition in the Star Wars galaxy. I'm talking about Solo, a Star Wars story. Ooh, that's a tongue twister. The origin story of young Han Solo, played by Alden Ehrenreich. So Solo, I'll just call it Solo because I don't want to keep saying a Star Wars story every time. And basically how he became the character we all know and love from the original trilogy. There's been a lot of talk about this film with, you know, the firing of Lord and Miller, Kathleen Kennedy firing the original directors of the film, Lord and Miller, because it was too comedic. Their use of improvising, and they wanted a more focused story on the script, and they were kind of going off and doing their own thing, and Lucasfilm did not really care for that, so they wanted to bring in a different director, which really brings a whole different tone to the film. So they brought in Ron Howard, and he reshot, what, 80% of the film, and this is what we have with the final product. And I will say from the get-go, it seems a little choppy from the first to second act. I don't know if the first act they kept from Lord and Miller's, from them filming it, and then Ron Howard took over towards the end of the first act. I'm not sure, but it felt very choppy from the get-go. So beginning of the film, we're introduced to young Han, played by Alden Ehrenreich. He's from the planet Corellia. He's rough around the edges, and he has a romance with Emilia, Clarke's character, and her name is Qi'ra. There's not a lot of hope for the future, so their overall plan is to get out of here. In the second act, Han Solo is a soldier. He's coming across a group of smugglers, which opens up other characters in the film, one being Woody Harrelson. He plays Beckett and the rest of his crew. And essentially, this is a heist film with Beckett and his crew. You know, Solo trying to join forces with them and to find this certain item. I won't say what it is, not to spoil anything, but trying to find this item, get some money, and buy a ship and fly back to Corellia. But what's really exciting about this movie, it being an origin story, is seeing how Solo meets Chewbacca, you know, right from the original trilogy films. You know, they're best buds. They're flying the Millennium Falcon, but this is how they really meet and get introduced to one another. And it's really a scene that you wouldn't expect, but it's cool how they do meet, and also really funny how Solo knows the Wookiee language and he like understands Chewbacca. At first, you know, they don't really like each other, and then this happens, and you know, Chewbacca finding out about Solo and how Solo can understand his language, and they hit it off and really escape from this planet, and really setting up the rest of the film of this heist. They're trying to get this item for Paul Bettany's character. Paul Bettany was also fantastic in this movie. Originally, I think it was supposed to be Michael K. Williams in the antagonist villain role, but it was taken over with Paul Bettany's character. So he's a crime boss, and he's really great with the little screen time he does have in this film. With that being said, you know, in the Star Wars universe, we always have the really badass villain. You know, we have Darth Vader, we have Kylo Ren, you know, the list goes on and on. This film is lacking a villain. We don't have a lot of that with Paul Bettany because he doesn't have a lot of screen time. What little time he does have, he's really great, but he doesn't come off as like a memorable villain as we've grown up with Star Wars with Darth Vader and now recently Kylo Ren. I don't think his character really could have been in this movie because I don't think it really would have made that much of a difference because they didn't focus on any sort of villain. It's more of a origin story of how Solo became the character we all know and love today. But one of the characters I was really excited to see on the big screen in a younger version is Lando Calrissian, played by Donald Glover. I mean, that dude's blowing up right now. He's in everything, you know, with Atlanta, with Childish Gambino, with a new music video, and now playing Lando, a young, cool, and hip Lando. Let me tell you what, he was probably one of the best performances in this film. And that's sad to say when you have a film focused on Solo, hence the name of the movie. The supporting cast is better than the actual character himself, and that's being said here with Lando because he was great. He had that Billy D. Williams vibe to him, the way that he talked. Everything you heard about me is true. But the action sequences, you know, the CGI was pretty phenomenal. You know, flying up in space, this overall heist, trying to find this item for Paul Bettany's character. They're on top of a train, you know, like some stormtroopers and things like that. Those scenes were really well done, and that felt like a Ron Howard film, just the way that it was filmed. There's a lot of great action sequences. I think in this movie they were trying to throw in more comedy that felt really forced, with the different directors as well, with Miller and Lord being notorious for comedy. They had some comedy in here, but Alden Ehrenreich, his performance as Solo and throwing in some comedy into the film just didn't really work for me. It felt really forced and really dry. With Harrison Ford playing this character, he's a grumpy guy with these amazing one-liners that we still quote today. But Alden felt more like a young Jack Nicholson, like from The Shining, with his performance and the way that pronunciated words and his overall performance in the movie. It didn't feel like a young Harrison Ford, but that's okay because it still worked, but it just didn't feel like a young Harrison Ford. If you could look past that, overall the cast is really great. The supporting cast, in my opinion, was a lot better than the actual focal point here being Solo. I did like his performance. He was a lot better than I thought he would be, but I don't think he really nailed the persona of young Han Solo. This film is a really good time. I wouldn't say it's perfect. I wouldn't say it's the best one in the franchise by any means. But if you're looking for, a fun sci-fi heist adventure, I think you guys will have a really good time with this. Between Chewbacca and Solo and how these characters meet was one of the best aspects of the film, and Chewie was so good in this, even though he was played by a different actor. He was great in this, and just seeing how these two come together and work together and how their relationship really turns and becomes what it was in the original trilogy series. Lando was phenomenal by Donald Glover. I really liked Emilia Clarke's character. And again, Solo I thought was the least impressive character in the movie, even though the movie is based on him. The supporting cast, without them, I think this movie probably would have tanked. It's not a movie that I'm going to be talking about years from now. So if you take it for what it is, with all of the changes in the directing, some of the script and the pacing of the film, I think if you look past all that, you're going to have a really good time with this, especially if you're a fan of the Star Wars franchise. It's an origin story that necessarily didn't have to be made, but it was made, so we got to take it for what it is. Also, there's a huge reveal in the third act towards the end of the film in the form of a hologram. I won't say who it is, but it has to do with the prequel series. Really fantastic. I did not see that coming. I knew there was going to be some characters from the other films, but not this one in particular. It's really cool to see this character show up and how it incorporates with Emilia Clarke's character if they want to move forward with another film in this series. Overall, I'm giving Solo, a Star Wars story, a 3 out of 5 Millennium Falcon hair pieces. So what'd you guys think? Have you guys seen Solo, Star Wars movie? What'd you think of Alden Ehrenreich's performance as young Han Solo, a scruffy nerf herder? What'd you guys think of Lando, Emilia Clarke, everybody else in this film? What about Chewie? Let us know what you think in the comments below, and don't forget to hit subscribe. This is Logan Myerz signing out for the Millennium Falcon. Let's take this baby for a test spin, Chewie, shall we? Until next time, cheers!